Nice to meet you, Zafar. Heard a lot of great things about you.
Ooh, I don't know how much of it is true, but we'll find out.
Is it Ford? But yeah,
Sorry, Ford. Car.
similar difference.
Don't let me do
Right.
that on the podcast. That'll be really bad.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Wharton Tech Talks. I'm your host, Ibrahim. This is my voice. We've got with me co-hosting Matt Gates. Say hello.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
And then we are really excited to have our first guest, Zafar Razzacki. Zafar, welcome. Welcome. It was good to have you here, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today.
I mean, you and I go way back, right? Way back to, I'm going to expose the life out of him. Way back to his 786 days when he was in a boy band back in a long time ago.
It's true. It's true. Yes. Man, yeah, the boy band days, that was like a lifetime ago, but I like to try a lot of different things, and music was one of them. So that was a fun journey for sure.
You do try a lot of different things. I think your career journey is fascinating, right? Like well, in my mind, started at 786. I don't know if that's where you really started your profession, right? But then, right, you did Google, then you did GM. Well, no, you first started at a biotech company, then you did Google, then you did GM, then you did Maven, I believe, and then you left product and into consulting. Like, what was that journey, and how did you go from healthcare to ads to autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, so definitely, started my career in the health tech and biotech space. I'm a biomedical engineer by training, and so I think there's always that engineer inside of me that wants to take things apart and understand how it works. But when you combine that with the love of people and understanding how you design products to solve people's problems, you explore a lot of different avenues. From there, was blessed to have an opportunity to go to Google, and then really help those companies think about how they connect with consumers in that digital landscape.
You were working on ads there?
Yeah. So I sat in the ad side of the house and had clients that I would work with that we would develop their digital strategies and think about how you use the Google ecosystem of products and services to create brand experiences and ultimately drive sales. That's the metric that you target. But yeah, it was amazing to use these different platforms like Google Search and YouTube and Maps, and at the time, Google Plus had just gone live, and so you start to really think about that digital ecosystem, and that's what I'd say that was a turning point in my career, where I started to think about everything, whether it was how we interact through our devices, and ultimately vehicles.
So autonomous vehicles was something you chose, or was it happenstance? Like, you really got interested in Waymo and you decided, I want to go in that direction now?
I mean, admittedly, I was nowhere near it at Google. I was in the ad side of the business. That was happening in X. But I was fascinated by it. I grew up in automotive.
Interesting.
My father, I'm a Detroit kid. I grew up in the Detroit suburbs. My father worked for Chrysler for almost 30 years. So I grew up in and around cars. And to see Google really thinking about the space differently, and the underlying mission, right, that it was focusing on safety and eliminating that variability of the risks that humans take getting into a car every day.
Man, you hit the buzzword, right? Safety when it comes to autonomous vehicles, right? Like, that's such a question, right? I have a friend of mine who did a master's in ML, and he kept posing the question of, like, do you hit the car or do you hit the pedestrian? And, like, how do you program that in? Where are we? Like, I have no idea how to think about that. Like, where are we in terms of safety? Where are we in terms of those types of ethical questions? Like, how are people thinking about that when it comes to developing autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, the trolley problem that you're describing is a classical case, and I think we've been talking about that for a decade, and we'll probably continue to talk about that for a decade. So, how every unique software system handles that problem is going to be up to the creators of that system and the people who are writing those policies. And I think it's a combination not just of the vehicle's intelligence making that decision, but there's still so much that needs to happen from policy and regulatory environment perspective. Can we actually have autonomous vehicles on the road today operating in hybrid environments with human-driven vehicles? I mean, the reality is we're still so far away from that, I think we're going to still see another 5 to 10 years pass before the technology is ready, before the infrastructure is there, before all the regulatory environment is there. So yeah, big question, but I think we're still a long ways away from the answer.
So what is like, because like, I mean, I stalked the life out of you, right? But like when you were at May Mobility, right, and you said that you think that we're totally ready right now for autonomous vehicles, like we're on the verge of it, that, moving conference room, as you called it, was ready to go, right? Where can we be in 5 years? Like realistically, what does that look like? What's that roadmap? Do we need regulatory change? Is the technology there?
Yeah. So the asterisk, that I always put on that statement while I was at May Mobility is that it's all contextual to the environment that you're in. Okay. So we were operating low speed vehicles for short duration trips. We were moving people about a half mile to a mile between a parking lot and an office building. Very, very different context, right? From your typical commercial vehicle on higher speed roads. So I think that caveat is definitely still in place. Okay. And our vehicles at May were always manned by a fleet attendant. Mm-hmm. And so that fleet attendant was always there to observe the performance of the vehicle, ensure safe operation. So I don't think that's going to change for a while yet. I think that if you're asking about the next 5 years, like that's probably still the reality. I mean, certainly we can look at Waymo and what they're doing right now. And I mean, it is fascinating what they've been able to achieve. And yes, they have truly driverless vehicles in operation. And
as of this week, right?
That's right. Yeah. Fully open to the public, right? In the Phoenix metro area. So super exciting. But they are the exception. I think everyone else is still very much in earlier stages of development, and I'd say by all standards, that next 5 years is still going to be pretty limited use cases, pretty limited design domains, and for the most part, still humans monitoring the performance of the system.
What is the next milestone then, right? Like what? So, like, can you paint me a picture of like, do we have autonomous technology? Like cars are capable of doing it, or are they not? Like, or is it we just need a regulatory milestone? Like, what is the next like 2 or 3 milestones in the timeline for them?
I mean, I think the technology is certainly evolving still, and it's amazing to see what some of these vehicles are capable of, and the software stack and the hardware suite that they're using. So, Voyage is another great example. If you follow Voyage, and their CEO almost on a biweekly basis is posting updates on their vehicle performance, and so I think these systems are becoming more and more sophisticated, literally every week. Mm-hmm. I'd say you just brought it up. I think the milestone we just hit with Waymo extending their operating footprint, huge milestone. I think we're also, we think so much about autonomous vehicles as being robotaxis, and I think the reality is we're going to see more of it happening in the fleet and logistics space. So Waymo just earlier at the beginning of the year launched a whole new business line focused on trucking, and a lot of people that you talk to at Waymo will tell you, and across the industry will tell you, that's the real focus area right now. It's trucking and logistics. It's a different use case. It's not in high traffic, high suburban or pedestrian traffic zones. They can run these vehicles under different design constraints, and have these freight and logistics trucks operating on corridors where they can safely operate. So
who's going to win that? Is that, I mean, I think freight, and my uneducated view is Uber, right? Like, we hear about Uber Freight a lot, but I don't know if they're really anywhere in their technology. Like, who are the different players and where are they at?
I mean, Waymo is certainly one of the bigger ones. I'd say, Uber is probably on their way. They had the acquisition of, I believe it was called OTTO, which was another autonomous trucking company. And there are a handful of others that are slipping my mind right now, and there are a number of upstarts. Okay. Some of my former GM colleagues joined a startup called Arrival, and Arrival is based out of the UK, but they're completely reimagining what do you call them? Like the UPS truck. And I mean, just Google them. These vehicles are beautiful, and they're rebuilding them from the ground up. They're electric.
What makes a vehicle beautiful, bro? Tell me what makes a vehicle beautiful.
I'm a big design geek, man. So okay. I mean, just think about your perception of like a FedEx vehicle or a UPS truck today. Yeah. And completely reimagine that with 21st century lines, like very just I'm doing hand gestures like you can understand what I'm saying. But no, I'm like, do a Google search, for an image of an Arrival truck or the Arrival bus, and you can tell a very clear difference. And it's a design-driven approach. I know those guys, and they're putting a lot of attention into just even the look and feel of how the operator in the vehicle functions differently. The UI and the UX inside of the vehicle is totally different from what I think today's vehicles were designed to the experience today's vehicles were designed to deliver. So I think that's another huge aspect that's changing in the industry is the experience that people will have. I mean, look, see, there you go.
We pulled up a picture of the Arrival, sleek and curvy, and
still very not aerodynamic. I mean, it's a blunt body, right? You're sticking packages in there, so at some point it's got to be able to put packages. But yeah, that's always your problem with a semi truck, right?
Yeah,
it's moving a box.
And even that, I mean, I think that was one of their first generation concept designs. I think they have some more recent revamps of their design to address those types of issues. But as a typical startup, right, you prototype and you test and you iterate. But
that's the interesting thing, though, right? Like, you're talking about these startups and these new companies, right, that are doing it, and maybe like the big tech players like Google with Waymo, right? Like, how does legacy companies, like you were at GM for a number of years, how do they even compete in this space, right? Like, are they, I mean, the conception is that they're super bureaucratic, right? And they don't innovate as fast and they're not agile. Like, is that true? Or do they have like innovation centers? How's that working?
I mean, I'd say for the most part, it's true. Okay. They are, these gigantic 100-year-old ships that need to turn direction. And they've got a lot of momentum behind them with their core business and 100 years of experience. And so, it was the job for folks like me inside of GM to help push and to help change direction. And, I think it takes time. I worked very closely with like our ventures arm inside of GM, and we built a lot of relationships and made a lot of investments with startups. We also tried to launch some of our own internal startups to try to move faster around developing new products. And so I helped to run an incubator that was focused on doing that. So I think, they're all on that journey. And I think the reality is, I mean, some of them are going to adapt and figure it out faster. Right. And some of them aren't. And they'll either go through the growing pains of that, or the reality is the industry is going to look different. 10 years from now, some of these guys might die, and you'll see others the likes of Tesla or Arrival or others that didn't exist, and are now, at the top of the game.
Yeah. I mean, so I think one of the big challenges for them has got to be talent, right? Like they lured you away from Google, which to me is pretty incredible. Maybe it's because you went from ads to like autonomous vehicles. So that was a real cool content switch for you, but like,
well, let me give you the truth on that story, right? Leaving Google was a hard decision,
right.
And it wasn't that I was lured away. It was actually a personal decision that I had to make when my first child was born. And so that was, my family's all here. At the time, my final role at Google was out in the Bay Area at headquarters. So I had to make that tough decision that I'm going to come back. And it actually took me a year to find that, well, a year and a half to find that gig at GM. So just to be very clear about even that decision to leave and to come here and landing at GM, those were another set of just like happenstance, things that I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But it's not like I said, oh, I'm going to go over to the automotive industry because that's what I'm excited about right now.
And while we're talking about your career trajectory, why'd you leave product and go to consulting? That seems like a huge switch.
Well, so the reality is my practice inside of consulting is focused on helping others do product right. And so, my experience both in places like Google and General Motors, as well as at 5 different startups throughout my career, it's all been about figuring out how to go from idea to prototype to product and business as fast as possible. And just like we're talking about the GMs and the Fords of the world, I mean, every industry is in this transition state right now, where they're thinking about the new digital lifestyle that their consumers are leading, the connected ecosystem, and how are they going to shift their product strategy. And so the practice that I'm in focuses on helping them in that transition. So I like to think I'm still doing product, but just like 1 degree removed.
Okay, that makes sense. But you're like, I mean, digital products, connected products, right? How do you have a framework for like what makes sense to be connected, or is everything and its mother going to be connected? Do I need a connected coffee pot? Is that the next thing for me to get?
Yes. You don't have one already?
I mean, come on, man. Alexa should be making your coffee for you before you set foot in the kitchen.
But isn't it a meditative experience for anyone else but me? Like, think about the autonomous vehicles, right? Like you've said many times in like your different, speeches that this is an opportunity for people to look up, to connect with the world, to connect with each other socially. Isn't that just going to lead to more screen time? Like, aren't people just going to keep swiping on TikTok if they're in on these autonomous vehicles?
I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I think there has to be a balance. And I'm a big believer that it's important to connect with the real world and to put your screen away. And so, I think we have to be judicious about what we do and do not connect. I joked about Alexa making your coffee, and you're right. For some people, that act of grinding the beans and pouring it and all of that, that can be an experience that they want to connect with. And for others, it's not. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I drink it maybe once every few days. And he's shaking his head like I just committed sacrilege. But it's just like that. I think we have to decide what are the experiences that we really value the most, and give people options, right? And do you want in? I mean, I'm a huge tennis fan. So for me, it's important to carve out that time where I know I'm going to get away and I can be on the court. And even on the tennis court, there are connected tennis rackets and they're putting accelerometers and all sorts of things in the butt cap of the tennis racket. And I'm old school. Like, I don't want any of that. I just want to step out on the court with my old tennis racket and play. So I think this is going to be, it's going to be an optimization, and we're going to figure out, it's crazy. I mean, if you go on Amazon, right, and basically any product you search for, there will be a connected version of it. And some of it are great ideas, and some of them are not, right? I mean,
What are the cool ones? What are the cool ones that you found?
Oh man, trying to think of.
I mean, connected thermostat. It's been around for a while, but that thing is game changer.
Oh, sure. No, I mean, I consider that old school, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I will say, you brought up thermostat. I'm a big believer in connected home.
Mm-hmm.
My entire home is part of the Google ecosystem. So my blinds, my lights, my security system, my doorbell, what else? Garage, sprinklers. I mean, at one beck and call to my friendly Google Assistant here, I can do all of that.
Yeah.
So things like that. And it's funny, I have 3 little kids, and they probably talk to Google more than they talk to me. And it's because they know they can do all of this stuff. I used to, when I was a kid, fumble around the house for the remote control and have to switch channels. They can literally say, like, play Ninjago on Netflix on that TV, and it's done. Like, they're sitting down and watching TV. So I think a lot of those things are realities. When we talk about what will be connected, the home, the office space is another one that I think we're going to see increasingly connected. And the reality too, like with autonomous vehicles, I'm a big believer that space, once we don't have to drive, is going to be more about the experiences we can create in it than, hands glued to the wheel and focus on the road. So, I think those are all inevitable futures for us.
So, like, as you think about the home, right? Like, we all have this, I don't know, I've probably for 20 years now, I've seen like that video of, everything is a screen, your mirror is a screen, the wall is a screen, there's TVs everywhere. Where are we in 5 years with that? And then, like, also when you're talking about the cars, like, we have Cadillac today, we have Lamborghini today, and then we have, Toyota or something more affordable, right? Like, are there going to be differences like that in terms of the internal experiences of the car?
Great question. So 2 very different questions. Let's talk connected home first. I think it's important to understand, screens aren't proxy for technology, right? Like, Screens don't have to be everywhere. In fact, I think it's almost the opposite. The more invisible you can make technology and the more integrated you can make it, the better. That's why I think you're starting to see the rise of connected speakers. And, Google just announced their new speaker. Amazon just announced a line of new Echoes. So, I mean, imagine now literally like placing these things in inconspicuous places throughout the home and having this like omnipresent assistant that you can talk to.
Yeah.
It's really, think about the endpoints, like what it can do. It's not that I'm necessarily needing to watch something on a screen, but I want the microwave to warm up my dinner, or I want my coffee waiting for me. I think it's stuff like that. And the reality is a lot of that is happening today. I'd say we're still in the early stages of it. It's going to perfuse more throughout our homes, and products are going to become more sophisticated. I think the price points are also going to start to drop down a little bit as well. And so you'll start to see more and more adoption of that in the coming years.
Do you read Ben Thompson at all? His article on Stratechery, the daily newsletter?
I don't.
Interesting quote, I think yesterday or the day before, where he said regarding the Alexa and the connected home launch, he was saying that the anthropomorphization of the home is something that needs to be like understand you, anticipate your needs, and of course, like, that's what Alexa is now. It's the voice, or like Google is now the voice of your home, right? Like, they, even if you saw like Amazon removed their logo from the home device, right? Like, it's so interesting that like the home is now a thing.
Totally. Yeah. And I love that you nailed that word, anthropomorphization, because that's really what it is, right? You want to figure out how to bring that technology and that intelligence to life in ways that aren't alien to us. You want them to be natural and comfortable. And that's where, I mean, literally my kids are growing up with it now, and they know it's a trusted resource to them. And they can ask it questions. They know they're going to get the truth from it. And so, I think that's a very real technology trend that we're only going to see continue to grow in the years ahead.
I've got to ask you a metaphysical question, right? Like, does that make us less human? Like, are we going to continue to just be unable to communicate with each other the more that we're able to communicate with our home?
So this is actually a very serious topic, right? I do believe that our reliance on devices, and I think this requires a deeper study. So right. I don't want to generalize, but the more time we're spending glued to our devices, focused on things like social networks and WhatsApp and text and other things, I think that is changing our dynamic of how we all communicate with each other. Our willingness to readily consume feeds of content without vetting them for authenticity and intellectual capital. I think that's definitely changing the fabric of our intelligence and our ability to communicate. So that's something I am scared about. And that, there's this documentary that just came out on Netflix, The Social Dilemma. The people behind that, the Center for Humane Technology, a lot of brilliant minds there that are standing up for reimagining technology and being responsible with technology. And I'm a big believer and a big supporter of that.
That's super interesting. I didn't realize that they were partnering, or a thought tank that partnered with technology folks. To change the way that we think about it. That's interesting. We don't have a ton of time left, but I really want to dive into the autonomous vehicles, because I mean that's stuff you really know. And my first and most obvious question to me is like, what are the different models of cars going to look like? Are we going to have like a Lamborghini, a Cadillac, internal? Don't tell anybody that I mixed up Ford and GM. I'm going to lose all credibility in this space. But like, right, like, is the Ford or the GM vehicle the affordable kind of everyday? I mean, they have nice cars, but the affordable everyday vehicle is just going to be like devoid of anything. Like, what are the different levels going to look like?
So let's quickly compare it to the airline industry today. Okay. Right? You consciously most people consciously make the decision that I'm going to fly Delta, or I'm going to fly United, or I'm going to fly Spirit, or I'm going to fly Emirates, or Etihad, or British Airways. And that's typically where our journey begins. And it's about the service level, it's about the loyalty, and then it starts to become about what type of experience do I get on that aircraft? Are the seats comfortable? Do they have the type of cookie that I like? Is the Wi-Fi reliable? I very rarely, and I know there are people who are airplane buffs and they love knowing what model they're flying on and the engine configuration and all of that. But my hypothesis is that we're going to care less and less about things like that, and it's going to be more about the brand and the experience and the loyalty that I'm aligning myself to.
But number one in airlines is price, right? Right. If you look at the way that people purchase flights, I mean, I think like when you get business travels, sure, loyalty programs and experience makes a difference, but the vast majority of the everyday, person chooses their leisure flight based on price. Is that going to be the same, or do you think that's going to be different? Or is the price going to be relatively commoditized?
Price is certainly still a very important driver.
Okay.
But my point here is that it's price and experience and all of these other variables compared to, what brand. Now let's transition to vehicles and mobility, right? Am I going to care as much about the brand of vehicle that I'm traveling in? Am I going to care as much about the model? Is it, how many people does it seat? And it's going to be more about my preferences and my use case and my cost sensitivity and the experience that I want. Now, I think they'll certainly align certain models and certain vehicles to, what is the delta of mobility versus what is the spirit of mobility. And, they'll likely form their partnerships and have their preferred vehicle providers. But at the end of the day, and I think this also kind of aligns with, you're starting to see, there are many questions about vehicle sales. And have we hit peak sales numbers? Are we going to start to see sales declining? There's data saying that fewer and fewer 16-year-olds are actually submitting driver's license applications. So my point here is that, the appetite for people to drive and the interest in specific vehicle brands and models is changing today relative to what the industry thought in the past. And I think it's going to be more about that experience and that convenience and that cost that are going to be the drivers about how we select the services that we use.
That's fascinating, right? Like, the first thing I wanted to do in my life when I was 16 was get a driver's license, to just get behind the wheel and like have freedom and like
Sure.
all of that. Why is that changing?
I think, frankly, I think it goes back to that whole push towards technology, right? People are more focused on rapid connection, on rapid gratification. Driving is becoming more of a pain point for a lot of people, especially when you think about, a lot of people are spending time behind the wheel, stuck in traffic on their way to and from work. And those are frictions that we don't want to have to deal with, and we don't want to waste our time with. And I think that's why you see some sustained business opportunity in the likes of Uber and Lyft and some of the other competitive landscape. I think that's why micromobility is getting traction in certain markets. They're offering alternatives to the pains and frictions of needing to own and drive.
So you're sort of talking about maybe 20 to 25 plus years out, right? Where the body itself kind of becomes commoditized and the inside is how you're competing. How do you consider the balance between short-term design, where you've got people who are afraid of giving up control to a computer, and also the realization that, like, hey, what Waymo's doing in Arizona, those are 5-minute trips. So you're not going to sit there and watch a movie on this big screen in the car, versus the long-term potential where you could be in an autonomous vehicle for an hour and a half on the way into work, and you care more about having that full suite. So like, how do you think about the cost of really building out this ecosystem when short-term people aren't going to take advantage of it just because the use case isn't there yet, versus getting them over that hump of, hey, there's a computer driving this thing and I'm okay with it?
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair characterization. And that's where, I think the gray area that we're in today, we can realistically achieve level 2, level 2.5, maybe up to level 3. And you see the likes of Tesla with their autopilot capabilities. GM is making a lot of advancements with Super Cruise. And so I think there's still this sufficient provision of autonomy where, maybe in that long haul on the highway, I can get some of that relief of allowing the vehicle to operate itself. And that's where then, you just start to see some of the other UX elements that are being developed inside of the cabin coming to play, right? There is, and obviously we have to have a conversation about safety and distracted driving, and what's okay and not okay. But, things like consuming content inside of the cabin, commerce inside of the cabin. There's a lot of conversation happening around creating the marketplace inside of the car and being able to shop through your HMI, whether that's refueling or coffee or a bite to eat or, reserving your parking spot. So I think while we're not fully autonomous and we're not ready to sort of give over that full control, there is this balance of, how much autonomy can we give the operator, and then what is the other set of features and experiences we can create in that cabin. So I think that's the space we're in today, and you're starting to see, I think it's still early days in that UX space. The reality is, you've got entrants like Apple with CarPlay, Google with Android Auto that are coming in and challenging the OEMs. So I love it. I'm fascinated by it. Prior to becoming a Tesla owner, anything that didn't give me an Android Auto experience,
For sure.
I hated. But that ability to just have that personalized experience just by plugging in your device and pulling up that, your music library, your contacts, all of that. I mean, I think that's the experience that people are coming to expect in the vehicle today.
But there's a control question there, right? Like or an ecosystem question rather, right? Like Tesla, I think, refuses to work with Android and Apple, but will work with Amazon. Like there's consideration as to like who controls the customer experience, right? And like, will the GM and Fords of the world just give up and like want to go with Google and Apple because it's already so integrated into like their calendar and their email and everything else? Like who will partner with who there?
That's a fun game to watch, right? I mean, I think no one wants to cede control. If you take that sort of as the foundational basis, I kid you not, I was literally, during my time at GM, I was in a meeting where I said, hey, we're never going to beat Google or Apple at delivering the experience inside of the vehicle. Why aren't we doubling down and really elevating that experience and providing them more access, sharing more data, and creating better experiences? And the vice president that I was talking to said, we don't want to get in the game of just being a commodity player. We don't want to lose control of the customer. And I likened it to the mobile handset industry. The reality is that the car maker is more like Samsung than they are the OS developer, right? They're not Google, they're not Apple, they're the handset manufacturer, and they don't want to be that. Right. And so I think you're going to see kind of that battle play out, and you're going to see partnerships form, aiming to find that right balance. I love what Google's doing with Google Automotive Services, really offering the full suite of software solutions, and that Volvo is buying in and offering a full Google experience inside of the car. I mean, it's fascinating. It's going to be fun to watch how that all plays out.
Who has control then? Like, let's pretend that that's the case. Right? Let's say Volvo and Google form a really close partnership. And in an autonomous world, is Google directing the car? Is Volvo directing the car? Who's ensuring them? Like, who's in control? Who holds accountability for that stuff?
You're asking a lot of tough questions there. And so I mean, at the most fundamental level of where does the control lie, that is all going to be part of the software stack, or the AV stack, right? It's part of the, an autonomous vehicle has a perception system that can see the world around it. It has a localization capability to know where it is. And then it's taking all of that information and making decisions, right? There's planning and behavioral decisions that have to happen. That's all based on machine learning and algorithm development that technology stack contains. So if it's Waymo, then it's their driver that sits inside of that. I think the legalities of it, who's going to get sued in an accident,
Right.
I think those are still big open debates right now. But the prevailing philosophy is that whoever the decision lives within the tech stack, whether that liability that then gets passed to the service provider or the vehicle, that's all still, I'd say, TBD.
Who do you think? Who do you think if you had to put a stake in the sand?
If I go back and draw parallels to the airline industry, we saw what happened with the Boeing situation, and I don't remember the model number, but there were software defects in that plane's control systems,
right?
And we saw what happened.
Right.
I think the airline ultimately holds the liability as the operator of that vehicle. But it sure as hell didn't look good for Boeing, and they've suffered ever since then, right? And right. Their technology has come into question. So I would probably parallel that and say the service provider will hold a majority of the liability, but the underlying responsibility still lives in the technology.
That is interesting and hard to parse, and you also wonder what's going to happen to the insurance industry. Right. And it depends. Is it all public? Is it a public commodity, or is it 2 or 3 companies that win and hold the whole contract for all of the infrastructure? But I guess that's really far out. But we'll post in the Medium later. But we were just showing your tech stack from the AWS presentation, and one of the big things on there you have is monitoring, right, and cameras in the car. Are people going to be concerned with privacy? What are you monitoring? What are you taking a video of?
Yeah. So let me also clarify that very oversimplified architecture was for the tech stack inside of the vehicle, right? That is intended to complement the whole tech stack that needs to focus on autonomy.
I see. They're separate.
So this is separate. But think of this as the internal facing driver, right? And this is the person who's making sure that you're comfortable inside of the vehicle, that you haven't left your purse behind, or whatever. And so that's where, I do think something like monitoring is going to be an important component to delivering the right experience inside of the vehicle. And in the same way that we think about, if I get in a cab or if I get in an Uber, there's a certain amount of that privacy that I'm ceding to the driver. Right. And that driver might be privileged to hear some of my conversation with my fellow passengers or whatever. There's going to be analogous privacy considerations that you have to make even when there isn't a driver in the vehicle. I think that cameras, other interfaces, microphones, you're going to have a lot of those types of modalities that people are going to need to interact with. And that's the only way I believe you can create both an enjoyable and a safe experience inside of the vehicle.
It opens up so many interesting questions around privacy, and people want privacy and we fight for it, but then do we actually use it? Right? We get opportunities, and how much do people actually care, or how much are they willing to secede? I wish we had another hour with you to just dive into that, to dive into so much more, but we are coming up on time. And so I wanted to give you our closing question. We did provide it to you in advance, so hopefully you had some time to think about it, but if not, even better. But what is your boldest, most interesting, unique prediction of how the world's going to be different 5 to 8 years from now, right? Not 20 years out, but 5 to 8 years from now. What do you believe in your heart that is a total moonshot, but you think is still going to happen?
I think it is along this line of the home automation, our willingness to allow more technology and more robots and different form factors into our lives. I'm very excited about where that's heading. I think we're still very much at the early stages, and I think it's a reality that we're going to see play out in the near term. So, I talked about all the stuff that I have automated inside of my home. I'm excited to get my hands on a robot lawnmower, and I have a Roomba. I'm not going to knock them, but there's a lot of room for improvement. And so, I think the role that robots and intelligence are going to play in our day-to-day lives is going to increase. And I think there's a big opportunity for that to happen within that time frame that you're talking about, 5, 8, 10 years. It's fun. I used to give a talk to college students where I would flash a picture of the Jetsons on the screen, and half of them didn't know who the Jetsons were, which shows how old I am. But what I used to tell is that the Jetsons was a creation from the 1950s of what we envisioned life in 2020 to look like. And we certainly don't have the fully functional Rosie the robot, and we're not all whizzing around in our own drones and air, like flying pods, but there's still a lot of that future that we dreamed about back then that we can look at today and say, crap, it's happening.
Right.
So I'm a big believer that technology is going to continue to evolve, and our lives are going to get better because of it.
It's interesting to think how much did the Jetsons probably impact what we focused on, and how different the world could have been if the Jetsons was like created differently. Like maybe we're just trying to build the Jetsons. But Zafar, man, I really appreciate you coming on. It's really good to see you again. It's really good to connect with you again. I don't know if there's anything that you want to share, whether it's with Wharton students or with the broader tech community, that's on your mind, or any platform that you want to share.
Well, thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. It's great to talk to you again, and good to meet the rest of the team. You guys as students have an incredible opportunity ahead of you. This is such an exciting time, and like I talked about, there's so much happening in terms of technology and new products that we're building that have the potential to change people's lives. I'd say first and foremost, you're going to be empowered coming out of your program to go land that dream job. Look for something that is going to meet you where you want to be. Actually, I'm going to steal this. So there's a principle that I like to live by called Ikigai. And if you're not familiar with it, Google it. But it's about finding work that you love, doing things that the world needs, something you can actually get paid for, and leveraging your strengths. And so I think it's just really important to think about your future in this context, and try to check all of those boxes. I think that's the path towards satisfaction in life, and doing something that you love, doing something that the world needs, obviously getting paid for it. So when we talk about how crazy my own life journey has been, is because I've constantly been trying to optimize towards that and find the path that's going to get me there. And I'm still searching, to be honest. So, I think we're all going to go on that journey together, but I'm always happy to be a mentor and a friend to talk if anyone ever needs that. I'm a Google search away. So you can look me up and reach out, but I'm super excited for all of you. I'm thankful for your time and attention and hearing what I have to say. And I'm looking forward to creating the future with you all.
Thank you, Zafar.
Thank you. Yeah.